The morning air cut through Aiden Turner's worn jacket as he rushed across the crowded shopping mall, his 5-year-old daughter Lily's tiny hand clutched in his. He was late for a job interview, another one, and the babysitter had canceled at the last minute. Single fatherhood had never been part of his plan, but neither had his wife leaving them 2 years ago when Lily was barely 3. "Daddy, can we get ice cream after?" Lily asked, her innocent eyes wide with hope as they dodged through the crowd. "Not today, sweet Pia," Aiden replied, trying to keep the stress from his voice. "We need to save our pennies, remember? And Daddy has a very important meeting." The interview was for a maintenance position at an office building, not his dream job, but it offered health benefits and regular hours, which was what mattered for Lily. He checked his watch again. 15 minutes to get across the mall, find somewhere safe for Lily to wait, and make himself presentable enough to convince someone to hire him. The weight of unpaid bills and final notices pressed on his shoulders, heavier than his tool bag. That's when he heard a sound that cut through the ambient noise of the mall. A child's distressed wail, high-pitched and pained, followed by a woman's desperate, soothing voice. Aiden instinctively turned toward the sound. Near the mall fountain, a boy of about 8 was on the floor, hands pressed against his ears, rocking back and forth. His face was contorted in anguish as he screamed. A slender woman with auburn hair knelt beside him, trying to calm him while simultaneously shielding him from the stares of passing shoppers. "It's okay, Mason. It's okay," she was saying, but her voice trembled with helplessness. Without thinking, Aiden changed direction, pulling Lily along with him. "Come on, sweet Pia." The woman looked up as they approached, her face a mask of worry and embarrassment. She was beautiful, even in distress, eyes the color of summer storms, skin flushed with emotion. "Can I help?" Aiden asked simply. The woman, Willow Davidson, though Aiden didn't know it yet, looked at him skeptically. Strangers rarely offered help during Mason's meltdowns, mostly they just stared or whispered. "He's autistic," she explained quickly. "The fountain's too loud today and someone bumped into him." It's all too much for him." Aiden nodded, kneeling down to be at eye level with the boy, but keeping a respectful distance. He glanced up at the mall's speaker system directly above them, blaring cheerful music. "The acoustics here are terrible," he said. "Is there anything that usually helps?" "His headphones," Willow said, gesturing to a pair of noise-canceling headphones that had been flung aside in the boy's distress. "But he won't let me put them on now." Aiden set his tool bag down and unzipped it, pulling out a small, worn plush dinosaur, Lily's comfort object that she sometimes still needed, but insisted she was too big for that morning. "Lily, is it okay if we show your special friend to this boy? He's having a hard time with all the noise." Lily nodded solemnly, suddenly serious in the way children can be when they sense something important is happening. Aiden placed the dinosaur on the floor, a few feet from Mason. He didn't speak to Mason directly or try to touch him. Instead, he said in a calm, low voice, "This is Rex. He helps my daughter when things get too loud. He's pretty good at blocking out scary noises." Willow watched, astonished, as Mason's screams gradually subsided to whimpers, his attention caught by the small dinosaur and the gentle voice of the stranger. "I work in construction," Aiden continued in the same steady tone. "Sometimes the noise gets so loud that it hurts my ears too. I bet this fountain sounds like a waterfall to you right now, doesn't it?" Mason didn't respond directly, but his rocking slowed. His eyes flickered briefly to Aiden, then back to the dinosaur. Aiden gently pushed the dinosaur closer. "Rex is a good listener. He never tells anyone to calm down or be quiet. He just sits with you until things don't hurt so much." To Willow's amazement, Mason reached out and touched the dinosaur. His breathing was still rapid, but the full-blown meltdown was subsiding. "That's right," Aiden encouraged. "And you know what? I bet Rex would think those headphones of yours are pretty cool. He'd probably want a pair for himself." Mason looked at his headphones, then at the dinosaur, and slowly reached for them. Willow carefully helped him put them on, and the change was almost immediate. The boy's shoulders relaxed as the worst of the sensory assault was blocked out. "Thank you," Willow whispered, tears of gratitude shining in her eyes. Aiden shrugged modestly. "No problem. I know what it's like when everyone's staring and nothing you do seems to help." He glanced at his watch and winced. "I'm sorry, but we've got to run." "I have a job interview, and you're going to be late," Willow finished for him, noticing his worn clothes and the tool bag, "because you stopped to help us." "It's fine," Aiden said, though they both knew it wasn't. "Some things are more important." He helped Lily collect Rex, and the little girl solemnly handed the dinosaur to Mason. "You can borrow him," she said with the generosity only a child can muster. "But we need him back someday, okay?" Mason held the dinosaur carefully, not making eye contact but clearly treasuring the gift. Willow reached into her purse. "Please, let me," but Aiden was already standing. "No need, just glad we could help. Come on, Lily." And with that, he hurried away, unaware that he'd just changed the course of his life and Willow's forever. Willow watched the man and his daughter disappear into the crowd, a strange feeling settling in her chest. She hadn't even learned his name. In her world of board meetings and investment portfolios, spontaneous kindness from strangers was rare. Mason was calm now, clutching the borrowed dinosaur while Willow gathered their shopping bags. As CEO of Davidson Tech Innovations, she was used to solving problems with money and influence. But this man had accomplished with simple empathy what her wealth couldn't buy: a moment of peace for her son. "Come on, Mason," she said gently. "Let's go home." As they walked to the parking lot where her driver waited with the car, Willow couldn't shake the image of the man's kind eyes and the little girl who had given up her treasured toy. They needed to return the dinosaur, of course. And perhaps, she thought, she could find a way to thank him properly. What Willow Davidson didn't realize was just how difficult finding one kind stranger in a city of millions would prove to be, or how desperately she would want to. Aiden was 15 minutes late to his interview. The receptionist at Meridian Construction gave him a disapproving look as he tried to smooth down his wrinkled shirt. "Mr. Grayson already interviewed the other candidates," she said coolly, "but he agreed to see you since you called ahead about running late." Aiden nodded gratefully, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in his stomach. He'd been late because he'd stopped to help someone, which he'd do again in a heartbeat, but that wouldn't pay the rent. Lily sat patiently on a chair in the reception area, swinging her legs and flipping through a picture book the receptionist had reluctantly provided. "Be good, sweet Pia," Aiden whispered, kissing the top of her head before following the receptionist to the interview room. Howard Grayson was a stern-looking man in his 50s, with a perpetual frown that deepened when Aiden entered. "Mr. Turner," he said, not bothering to stand. "You're late." "Yes, sir, I apologize." "There was an emergency with a child at the mall, and I'm not interested in excuses," Grayson cut him off. "Punctuality is essential in this position. We have tight schedules to maintain." The interview went downhill from there. Aiden tried to highlight his experience in maintenance and construction, but Grayson seemed more interested in his personal circumstances. "Single father, I see," he said, scanning Aiden's application. "That could be problematic for overtime and emergency calls." "I have arrangements for childcare," Aiden said, though the truth was more complicated. His neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez helped when she could, but her arthritis was getting worse, and professional childcare was beyond his budget. "And your previous employer? You left because—" "The company downsized," Aiden replied, omitting that he'd been one of the first let go when he'd needed time off after Lily had pneumonia last winter. By the time the interview ended, Aiden knew he hadn't gotten the job. Grayson's handshake was perfunctory, his "we'll be in touch" clearly a dismissal. Aiden collected Lily, thanked the receptionist, and walked out into the sunshine feeling the weight of another failure on his shoulders. "Did you get the job, Daddy?" Lily asked, skipping alongside him. "We won't know for a little while, Sweet Pia," he said, forcing a smile. How about we go to the park before heading home, since we're already out? The park was a free distraction, and Aiden sat on a bench watching Lily play on the swings. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through job listings, trying not to feel overwhelmed. The rent was due in 2 weeks, and they were already eating too many meals of ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. Aiden's phone rang an unknown number. He answered quickly, hoping it was one of the other places he'd applied. "Mr. Turner, this is Janet from Dr. Miller's office. I'm calling about Lily's follow-up appointment for her asthma." Aiden rubbed his forehead. "Yes, of course. We need to schedule her for next week, and I'm seeing a balance on your account from her last visit. Our policy requires payment before scheduling new appointments." The balance was $300 that their insurance hadn't covered. $300 he didn't have. "I understand," he said, watching Lily laugh as she went higher on the swing. "Can I make a partial payment to secure the appointment? I get paid next Friday." It was a lie. His last construction gig had ended 2 weeks ago, and the unemployment check wouldn't arrive for days. The receptionist hesitated. "I can note that you'll pay $100 at the appointment and the rest within 30 days. Will that work?" Aiden agreed, knowing he'd find a way somehow. He always did. After hanging up, he sighed deeply, allowing himself a moment of despair before putting on a brave face for Lily. "Higher, Daddy, higher," she called, and Aiden pocketed his phone, walking over to push his daughter on the swings, her delight momentarily washing away his worries. Across town, Willow Davidson sat in her penthouse office. The skyline of the city spread before her like a glittering kingdom. On paper, she had everything a successful tech company she'd built from the ground up. A fortune Forbes had recently estimated at just over $1 billion, and respect in an industry dominated by men. But as she glanced at the framed photo of Mason on her desk, she felt the familiar pang of inadequacy. Money couldn't fix everything, especially not the challenges her son faced. Despite the best specialists, therapists, and schools, moments like today at the mall still happened. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Her assistant, Emily, entered with a stack of documents. "The board meeting is confirmed for Thursday," Emily said, "and the acquisition papers for Sola Tech are ready for your review." Willow nodded, only half listening. "Emily, do you remember that man who helped Mason at the mall today?" Emily looked confused. "I wasn't with you at the mall, Miss Davidson. Was this after you dropped me at the office?" "Yes, of course," Willow said, suddenly remembering that Emily had been dealing with a crisis at work while Willow had taken Mason shopping. "There was a man he helped Mason during a meltdown. He had a little girl with him and a tool bag. He mentioned going to a job interview." Emily raised an eyebrow. "That's not much to go on." "I know," Willow said, "but Mason still has his daughter's toy. We need to return it." "I can have someone from security go through the mall surveillance footage," Emily suggested. "They owe us after that donation to their community program." Willow hesitated. Using her influence this way felt like an abuse of power. But Mason had been asking for the dinosaur man, and the toy which Mason had named Rex after hearing Aiden call it that was now a source of comfort. "Let me think about it," she said finally. "For now, let's focus on the Sola Tech acquisition." But hours later, after reviewing contracts and taking conference calls, Willow's thoughts kept drifting back to the kind stranger with the worn jacket and gentle voice. There had been something about him, a quiet strength, a genuine compassion that seemed rare in her world of calculated business moves and strategic relationships. When she arrived home that evening to her expansive penthouse apartment, Mason was sitting with his therapist, Dr. Chen, working through a social skills exercise. The dinosaur was clutched firmly in his left hand. "He's been carrying it all day," Dr. Chen told Willow. "It seems to be helping him regulate his emotions." Willow watched as Mason carefully arranged a series of picture cards, his movements deliberate and focused. "He had a meltdown at the mall," she explained. "A stranger helped gave Mason this toy dinosaur." Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. And how did that make you feel? The question caught Willow off guard. How had it made her feel? Grateful, certainly. Relieved, but also something else, a flicker of connection she hadn't felt in a long time. Like I wasn't alone, she admitted quietly after Dr. Chen left. Willow sat with Mason as he ate dinner, carefully separating the different foods on his plate so they wouldn't touch. He was humming softly, a good sign that he was content. Mason, do you remember the man who gave you Rex today? Willow asked gently. Mason didn't look up from his plate, but he stopped humming. The dinosaur man, he said after a moment. That's right. We need to give Rex back to his little girl. She was very kind to let you borrow him. Mason's hand tightened around the toy. Rex stays, he said firmly. We could get you your own dinosaur, Willow suggested. One that looks just like Rex. Mason shook his head, more agitated now. Not the same. Rex knows the quiet place. Willow recognized the signs of Mason's distress building and didn't push further. Later, after she'd gone through their bedtime routine and Mason was asleep, Rex tucked under his chin, Willow made a decision. She texted Emily. See what you can find out about the man from the mall. Tall, dark hair, probably in his 30s. Had a daughter around 5 and was headed to a job interview. We need to return something that belongs to them. It was a long shot, but Willow Davidson hadn't built a tech empire by shying away from challenges. She would find the dinosaur man, return his daughter's toy, and thank him properly for his kindness. It was the right thing to do. What she didn't acknowledge, even to herself, was how much she was looking forward to seeing him again. The next morning, Aiden woke before his alarm, the familiar knot of anxiety in his stomach. He slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake Lily, who had crawled into his bed sometime in the night after a bad dream. Their apartment was small, just one bedroom, which Aiden had given to Lily while he slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. But on nights when she was frightened, having her close was more important than his aching back. He showered quickly in the tiny bathroom, where the hot water only lasted about 5 minutes. There was a leaky pipe under the sink that the landlord had promised to fix weeks ago, but Aiden had eventually repaired it himself. His tool skills were one of the few things he could still count on. In the kitchen, Aiden checked their food supplies. Enough for breakfast and dinner today, but tomorrow would be tight. His phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Rodriguez. Can't watch Lily today. Doctor appointment for my hip. Sorry. Aiden sighed, leaning against the counter. He had 3 job applications to drop off in person, and now he'd have to take Lily with him again. She was a good kid patient and understanding beyond her years, but potential employers always seemed less enthusiastic when they saw him with his daughter in tow. Daddy. Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Her pajamas were getting too small, another expense looming on the horizon. Morning, Sweet Pia, Aiden said, forcing cheer into his voice. How about pancakes for breakfast? Lily's face lit up. With chocolate chips. Let's see what we have, Aiden said, though he already knew they'd used the last of the chocolate chips last week. He mixed the simple batter while Lily set the table, carefully placing their mismatched plates and silverware. Daddy, where's Rex? Lily asked suddenly. Aiden froze for a moment, remembering the little boy at the mall. Remember the boy who was upset yesterday? You let him borrow Rex. Lily's forehead wrinkled in concentration. The boy with the special ears. That's right. He needed Rex more than you did yesterday. That was very kind of you. But how will we get Rex back? Aiden flipped a pancake, buying time. The truth was, he had no idea how to find the woman and her son again. He hadn't gotten her name or contact information in his rush to the interview. I'm not sure, Sweet Pia, but you know what? I think Rex is doing a really important job right now, helping that boy feel safe. Lily considered this seriously. Like how you help me feel safe. Exactly like that, Aiden said, his throat tightening with emotion. He slid a pancake onto her plate and kissed the top of her head. Now eat up. We've got a busy day ahead. After breakfast, Aiden dressed Lily in one of her better outfits and packed her backpack with coloring books, snacks, and a small water bottle. They couldn't afford to buy lunch out, and the last thing he needed was for Lily to get hungry or bored while he tried to make a good impression. They took the bus across town, Lily chattering about the shapes she saw in the clouds while Aiden mentally rehearsed what he would say to potential employers. The first stop was a hardware store that had advertised for a sales associate. The manager seemed impressed with Aiden's knowledge, but frowned when he mentioned his limited availability due to Lily's school schedule. "We need someone who can work flexible hours," the manager said, "including weekends." "I understand," Aiden replied, holding Lily's hand as she stood patiently beside him. "I can work weekends when I arrange childcare in advance." The manager nodded noncommittally. "We'll be in touch." They wouldn't, Aiden knew. The day continued in the same vain, polite rejections at a landscaping company and a warehouse that needed loading dock workers. By mid-afternoon, both Aiden and Lily were tired and discouraged. They sat on a bench in a small park, sharing an apple and the last granola bar from Lily's backpack. "Are we poor, Daddy?" Lily asked suddenly, her innocent question hitting Aiden like a physical blow. He hesitated, then decided on honesty. "We don't have a lot of money right now, Sweet Pia, but we have each other, and that makes us very rich in the ways that matter most." Lily leaned against him, seemingly satisfied with his answer. "I wish Mommy didn't go away," she said after a moment. "Me too, sometimes," Aiden admitted. Rachel had left them when her postpartum depression had evolved into a complete rejection of family life. The last he'd heard, she was in California, pursuing the acting career she'd abandoned when she got pregnant. She sent birthday cards sometimes, but no child support. Aiden's phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was a number he didn't recognize, but he answered quickly, hoping it was one of the places he'd applied to last week. "Aiden Turner?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes, speaking." "This is Emily Chambers calling on behalf of Willow Davidson, Miss." Davidson is trying to locate a man who assisted her son during an incident at Westlake Mall yesterday. "We believe that might be you." Aiden blinked in surprise. "Yes, I helped a boy who was having trouble with the noise. Is he okay?" "He's doing well, thank you, Miss." "Davidson would like to meet with you to thank you personally and return something that belongs to your daughter." "Rex," Lily whispered loudly, having heard enough to understand. "There's really no need for a meeting," Aiden said, uncomfortable with the formality. "I was happy to help, Miss." "Davidson is quite insistent," Emily replied. "She would like to invite you and your daughter to her home tomorrow evening, if that's convenient. Dinner will be provided." Aiden hesitated. A free meal was tempting, given their dwindling supplies, but he felt uncomfortable accepting charity. "Who exactly is Miss Davidson?" There was a slight pause. "Miss Willow Davidson is the CEO of Davidson Tech Innovations." The name was vaguely familiar to Aiden. He wasn't much for following business news, but even he had heard of Davidson Tech. They were one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country. "I see," he said, trying to process this information. The woman at the mall, with her simple clothes and lack of entourage, hadn't seemed like a corporate CEO. "And she wants us to come to her home?" "Yes, I can arrange for a car to pick you up. What's your address?" Aiden gave her the information, still slightly dazed by the turn of events. After arranging a time, he hung up and looked at Lily. "Guess what, Sweet Pia? We're going to visit Rex tomorrow." Lily clapped her hands excitedly. "And the boy with the special ears." "That's right. His name is Mason, and his mom wants to thank us for helping him." What Aiden didn't say was how strange it felt to be receiving gratitude from someone so far above his social station. The wealthy lived in a different world, and in his experience, they rarely noticed people like him except when they needed something fixed. Still, the promise of retrieving Rex had made Lily happy, and Aiden couldn't deny his own curiosity about the woman who had looked at him with such genuine gratitude in the mall. "Willow Davidson, CEO." It was an unexpected twist in an otherwise discouraging day. As they headed home on the bus, Aiden wondered what tomorrow would bring. At the very least, they'd get Rex back and a good meal. At most. Well, he didn't allow himself to think beyond that. Hope was a luxury he'd learned to ration carefully. Willow Davidson paced her home office, pausing occasionally to look out at the city lights. Emily had confirmed that they'd found Aiden Turner and arranged for him to visit tomorrow. Now, Willow was second-guessing the invitation. Why had she insisted on dinner at her home rather than meeting somewhere neutral like a restaurant? The answer, though she was reluctant to admit it, was Mason. Her son rarely connected with strangers, yet he'd been talking about the dinosaur man constantly. She wanted to see if Aiden could recreate that connection in a controlled environment where Mason felt safe. There was a soft knock at her door, and Dr. Chen appeared. The therapist came 3 evenings a week, working with Mason on social skills and emotional regulation before bedtime. Mason had a good session today, Dr. Chen reported. He mentioned the man from the mall several times. Willow nodded. He's coming here tomorrow evening with his daughter. I hope it wasn't a mistake to invite them to our home. Dr. Chen considered this. It's actually an excellent opportunity for Mason to practice social interaction in a safe space. But what about for you, Willow? What are you hoping to get from this meeting? The question caught Willow off guard. To return the toy, of course, and to thank him properly. Dr. Chen smiled knowingly. Just be careful. Mason forms attachments slowly but deeply. If this man and his daughter become part of his routine and then disappear. I understand, Willow said quickly. It's just dinner, a thank you, and returning the toy, but after Dr. Chen left. Willow wondered if she was being honest with herself. There had been something about Aiden Turner that had stayed with her a quiet dignity despite his obvious financial struggles. A gentleness with both his daughter and Mason that spoke of a deep capacity for empathy. Willow's own dating history was brief and unimpressive. After Mason's father had abandoned them, when Mason was diagnosed with autism at age 3, she'd thrown herself into both parenting and growing her company. The few men she'd dated since then had either been intimidated by her success or had seen Mason as a burden rather than the remarkable child he was. She went to check on Mason, finding him already asleep with Rex clutched tightly against his chest. Gently, she stroked his hair, wondering how she would convince him to return the dinosaur tomorrow. Perhaps she could buy an identical one. But no, Mason would know the difference immediately. His attention to detail was extraordinary. As she quietly closed Mason's door, Willow made a decision. She would approach tomorrow's dinner as she approached everything in life with careful planning and clear objectives. She would thank Aiden Turner, return his daughter's toy, or find a suitable replacement that Mason would accept, and perhaps offer Aiden a job if he was qualified. A practical solution to help a struggling father who had shown kindness to her son. Anything beyond that, like the way her heart had raced slightly when Emily confirmed he was coming, was irrelevant and would be firmly ignored. The car that arrived at Aiden's apartment building the next evening was not what he expected. He'd anticipated perhaps a company car, something practical but nice. Instead, a sleek black limousine pulled up to the curb, drawing curious stares from his neighbors. "Daddy, it's so big," Lily exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement. Aiden felt distinctly uncomfortable as a uniformed driver stepped out and opened the door for them. He dressed them both in the nicest clothes they owned, which for him meant the one good shirt and pair of slacks he kept for interviews, and for Lily, a floral dress she'd received for her birthday. "Mr. Turner," the driver said. "I'm Carlos. Miss Davidson sent me to bring you to her residence." "Thank you," Aiden replied, helping Lily into the car and trying not to gawk at the leather interior and built-in minibar. Lily had no such reservations. "Look, Daddy, there's a TV, and look at all the buttons." Carlos smiled at her enthusiasm. "Feel free to explore, miss. The drive will take about 30 minutes. As they pulled away from the curb, Aiden realized he had no idea where they were going. The Davidson estate, he assumed, was probably in one of the wealthy suburbs outside the city. Instead, they headed downtown, eventually pulling up to one of the most exclusive high-rises in the city, the Ascension, a gleaming tower of steel and glass where penthouses reportedly sold for 8 figures. "Here we are," Carlos announced, pulling into a private entrance. "Miss Davidson occupies the top 3 floors." Aiden swallowed hard, feeling increasingly out of place. "Lily, remember what we talked about. Best behavior, okay?" Lily nodded solemnly. "And say please and thank you and don't touch anything without asking." "That's right, sweet Pia." They rode a private elevator that required a special key, the doors opening directly into a stunning foyer with marble floors and a crystal chandelier. Aiden fought the urge to grab Lily and retreat back to the elevator. A woman in her early 30s with a tablet in hand greeted them. "Mr. Turner, Miss Turner, welcome. I'm Emily Chambers, Miss Davidson's assistant. Please follow me." She led them through the foyer into a vast living area with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The space was beautifully designed but surprisingly warm, with comfortable-looking furniture and colorful artwork, some of which appeared to be done by a child. "Willow will be with you shortly," Emily said. "She's just finishing up with Mason. Can I get you anything to drink while you wait?" "Water would be fine, thank you," Aiden replied, keeping a firm hold on Lily's hand to prevent her from touching the fascinating objects displayed throughout the room. Emily nodded and disappeared, returning moments later with water for both of them. "Dinner will be served in about 30 minutes. The chef has prepared a selection that should appeal to everyone, including Miss Turner." Chef. Of course there was a chef. Aiden nodded, feeling increasingly like he'd stepped into an alternate universe. "Thank you for coming," a familiar voice said, and Aiden turned to see Willow Davidson enter the room. She looked different than she had at the mall, more polished in tailored pants and a silk blouse, her auburn hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. But her eyes were the same, a stormy blue-gray that immediately held his attention. Behind her, partially hidden, was Mason, clutching Rex and eyeing them warily. "Miss Davidson," Aiden said formally, extending his hand. "Thank you for inviting us." "Please call me Willow," she replied, her handshake firm but brief. "And this is Mason." "Hello, Mason," Aiden said, crouching down to the boy's eye level but not approaching closer. "It's nice to see you again. This is my daughter, Lily." Lily waved shyly. "Hi, is that Rex you're holding?" Mason didn't respond verbally, but he held the dinosaur a little tighter, looking at Lily with cautious interest. Willow placed a gentle hand on Mason's shoulder. "Mason has really enjoyed having Rex visit. Haven't you, Mason?" Mason nodded slowly. "Rex likes it here," he said quietly. "He has his own special place." Aiden glanced at Willow, unsure how to navigate this delicate situation. They'd come to retrieve the toy, but clearly Mason had formed an attachment to it. Willow seemed to read his thoughts. "I was hoping we could discuss that over dinner." "Mason, why don't you show Lily your play area while the grown-ups talk?" Mason considered this for a moment, then nodded. "You can see Rex's special place," he told Lily, who looked to her father for permission. "Stay where we can see you, sweet Pia," Aiden said, and Lily nodded, following Mason to a corner of the vast room that had been set up with toys and books. Left alone with Willow, Aiden felt suddenly self-conscious. "You have a beautiful home," he said, for lack of anything better. "Thank you," Willow replied, gesturing for him to sit on one of the plush sofas. "It's a bit much for just the two of us, but the location is convenient for work." Aiden sat, careful not to disturb the perfectly arranged cushions. "I have to admit, I was surprised when your assistant called." "I didn't realize who you were at the mall." Willow smiled slightly. "I prefer it that way sometimes. Being recognized complicates things." She hesitated, then added, "I want to thank you properly for your help with Mason, what you did. Most people would have walked by or stared. Very few would have understood what he needed." My nephew is on the spectrum, Aiden explained. He's older now, 15, but I've seen my sister navigate those challenges. You learn to recognize the signs and what helps. Willow looked at him with new interest. Well, whatever the reason, you made a difference. Mason has been talking about the dinosaur man ever since. Aiden glanced over at the children. Mason was showing Lily a tablet, pointing to something on the screen while Lily listened attentively. He seems to be doing well now. He has good days and bad, Willow said. The mall was particularly overwhelming, too many sensory inputs at once. I should have known better, but we'd just come from his occupational therapy session, and I promised him we could look at the Lego store. Being a parent means making mistakes, Aiden said. Trust me, I make plenty. Speaking of parenting, Willow said carefully, your assistant mentioned you were headed to a job interview when you stopped to help us. Did it go well? Aiden hesitated. He didn't want her pity, but there was no point in lying. Not particularly. I was late, which didn't make a great first impression. Because you stopped to help us, Willow said, her expression troubled. I'm sorry about that. Don't be, Aiden said firmly. I'd make the same choice again. Willow studied him for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. What kind of work do you do, Aiden? Construction, mostly. Carpentry, some electrical. I'm pretty handy with most repair work. I was a project manager before the company downsized last year, but those positions are harder to come by. Willow nodded thoughtfully. As it happens, Davidson Tech is renovating an entire floor of our headquarters for a new research division. We've been having issues with the contractor's attention to detail. Would you be interested in consulting on the project, just to make sure the work meets our standards? Aiden blinked in surprise. Are you offering me a job, a consulting position? Willow clarified. With flexible hours that you could work around Lily's schedule, the pay would be competitive, of course. It sounded too good to be true, and Aiden's natural wariness kicked in. That's very generous, but I don't need charity. Willow's expression hardened slightly. I don't offer charity, Mr. Turner. I run a business. If I'm offering you a position, it's because I believe you're qualified. The fact that you stopped to help my son speaks to your character, but it's your professional experience that interests me professionally. Aiden felt properly chastised. I apologize. That was presumptuous of me. Willow's face softened. No, I understand your hesitation. Let me be clear, this isn't about repaying a debt. It's a legitimate need we have, and from what you've told me about your background, you might be the right person for it. Before Aiden could respond, Emily appeared to announce that dinner was ready. They moved to a dining room with another spectacular view of the city, now twinkling with lights as dusk fell. The table was elegantly set, but Aiden noticed thoughtful details: a plastic cup with a lid for Lily, cloth napkins folded into animal shapes, and what appeared to be Mason's preferred utensils set at his place. Mason insisted on bringing Rex to the table, placing the dinosaur carefully beside his plate. Lily watched this with interest, but didn't comment, remembering her promise to be on her best behavior. The meal was served by a private chef who introduced each dish, a simple but elegant menu of roast chicken, vegetables, and pasta that catered to both adult and child preferences. Aiden couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten food this good. Conversation flowed more easily than Aiden expected. Willow asked thoughtful questions about his work experience, and he found himself explaining his approach to project management and quality control. She listened attentively, asking follow-up questions that showed genuine interest rather than polite small talk. So you actually developed a new system for tracking subcontractor timelines? She asked, after he described a particularly complex project he'd managed. Aiden nodded. It was just a spreadsheet with some custom formulas, but it helped identify bottlenecks before they became critical delays. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need, Willow said. Our current contractor keeps missing deadlines and blaming various subcontractors, but no one is tracking the dependencies properly. As they talked, Aiden found himself increasingly intrigued by Willow. Behind her polished exterior was a sharp intellect and genuine passion for her work. She spoke about technology with the same enthusiasm he felt for a well-executed building project. Meanwhile, Lily was making a valiant effort to use proper table manners, though Aiden noticed her sneaking glances at Mason, who ate in his own particular way, carefully keeping different foods separated on his plate. "Daddy," Lily whispered, though not quietly enough, "Mason doesn't let his foods touch. Can I eat like that too?" Before Aiden could respond, Mason looked up. "Foods have different textures," he explained seriously. "They shouldn't mix." "Oh," Lily said, considering this. "That makes sense." "I don't like when my peas get mushy from touching mashed potatoes." Mason nodded, apparently pleased by her understanding. "Rex doesn't like mixed foods either." Willow watched this exchange with a surprised smile. Mason rarely engaged so directly with new people, especially children his own age. After dinner, as they moved back to the living area for dessert, Aiden found a moment to speak privately with Willow while the children returned to the play area. "About the consulting position," he said. "I'd like to learn more about it. If it's a legitimate opportunity, I'd be interested." Willow smiled. "Excellent. Emily can send you the details tomorrow, and we can arrange for you to see the construction site this week." There was a pause, and Aiden glanced toward the children. "There's still the matter of Rex," he said quietly. Willow's smile faded. "Yes, I've been trying to figure out how to handle that. Mason has become very attached. I'd be happy to purchase a replacement for Lily, of course." "It's not about the cost," Aiden said. "Rex was a gift from my sister when Lily was going through a rough time after her mother left. He has sentimental value." Understanding dawned in Willow's eyes. "I see. I'm sorry, I didn't realize." They both looked over at the children, who were now building something together with Lego bricks, Rex overseeing their project from a place of honor. "Maybe we can work something out," Aiden suggested. "A joint custody arrangement for Rex. Lily has been talking about Mason and seems to understand that he needs Rex right now." Willow looked at him with surprise and gratitude. "That's incredibly generous. Are you sure?" Aiden nodded. "Children understand more than we give them credit for. And it might be good for both of them to learn about sharing and compromise." "Thank you," Willow said softly. "That means a lot." As they rejoined the children for dessert, individual chocolate mousse cakes that delighted Lily, Aiden found himself wondering about Willow's situation. There had been no mention of Mason's father, and no evidence of another adult's presence in the home. As if reading his thoughts, Willow said quietly, "It's been just Mason and me for 5 years now." His father couldn't handle the diagnosis and decided parenthood wasn't for him after all. "His loss," Aiden said simply. Willow looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Yes, it was. What about Lily's mother?" She left when Lily was 3. Decided family life was holding her back from her dreams of becoming an actress. "Her loss," Willow echoed his words, a small smile playing at her lips. When it was time to leave, Aiden explained to Lily about the Rex arrangement. "Mason needs Rex right now," he told her. "But we'll visit him often, okay? And maybe Mason and Rex can visit us sometimes too." Lily considered this, then nodded. "Rex can help Mason be brave like he helped me." Mason, who had been listening, approached Lily cautiously. "Rex says thank you," he said, holding the dinosaur carefully. "He likes helping." It was the most direct interaction Mason had initiated all evening, and Willow looked as stunned as Aiden felt. "You're welcome, Mason," Lily said. "Maybe next time I can show you my books about dinosaurs." As Carlos drove them home, Lily fell asleep against Aiden's shoulder, exhausted from the excitement of the evening. Aiden stared out at the city lights, trying to process everything that had happened. A potential job that could solve their financial problems. A new friendship for Lily. And Willow Davidson, brilliant, wealthy, and surprisingly down to earth, who had looked at him not with pity but with respect. It felt like the beginning of something, though Aiden wasn't sure exactly what. All he knew was that for the first time in months, he felt a flicker of hope for their future. And that more than the fancy dinner or job offer, was the true gift of the evening. Over the next few weeks, Aiden's life transformed in ways he couldn't have imagined. The consulting position at Davidson Tech became a contract with generous compensation, flexible hours, and the professional respect he'd been missing. He reviewed the renovation plans, identified several critical issues that had been overlooked, and developed a new timeline that would actually work with the subcontractor's constraints. Willow was impressed enough to expand his role, putting him in charge of quality control for the entire project. The regular income allowed Aiden to catch up on bills, schedule Lily's medical appointments without anxiety, and even start a small savings account. But the professional relationship was only part of the story. The Rex joint custody arrangement meant regular interactions between the Turner and Davidson families. Lily and Mason developed an unlikely friendship, with Lily's patience and imagination complementing Mason's attention to detail and structure. Aiden and Willow found themselves spending more time together as well, initially discussing the construction project, but increasingly sharing stories about single parenthood, their own childhoods, and their hopes for their children's futures. 3 months after their first dinner, Aiden invited Willow and Mason to his apartment for the first time. He'd been hesitant. Their small 2-bedroom walk-up was a far cry from Willow's penthouse, but she had insisted she wanted to see where they lived. Aiden spent the entire day cleaning and worrying, while Lily decorated with handmade welcome signs for their guests. "Do you think Mason will like my room?" Lily asked, as she carefully arranged her books and toys. "I'm sure he will, Sweet Pia," Aiden replied, though he privately wondered how Mason would handle the change in environment. Willow had explained that new places could sometimes trigger his sensory sensitivities. When they arrived, Aiden watched nervously as Willow and Mason entered their small living room. Willow smiled warmly, complimenting the space with genuine appreciation rather than the condescension Aiden had feared. "I love how cozy it is," she said, "and the light in here is beautiful." Mason was more reserved, clutching Rex and staying close to his mother. But when Lily offered to show him her room, he followed with cautious interest. "I wasn't sure what Mason would want for dinner," Aiden told Willow once the children were occupied. "So I made a few different options with separate components." Willow looked touched by his thoughtfulness. "You've been paying attention." "Of course," Aiden said. "Mason's preferences matter, and honestly, it's nice to cook for someone who appreciates the effort." "Lily would live on peanut butter sandwiches if I let her," Willow laughed, then grew more serious. "Aiden, I want to thank you for everything these past months. Not just the work you're doing at Davidson Tech, but for how you've welcomed Mason into your lives. I've never seen him connect with anyone the way he does with you and Lily." "It goes both ways," Aiden said. "Lily adores him, and He hesitated, suddenly aware of how close they were standing in his small kitchen. "I've enjoyed getting to know both of you." Something shifted in Willow's expression, a softening, a question. For a moment, Aiden thought she might say more, but then they heard the children returning from Lily's room. "Mom, Lily has a dinosaur book with exactly 27 dinosaurs in it," Mason announced, showing more animation than usual. "We counted twice." Dinner went surprisingly well, with Mason accepting the carefully separated food Aiden had prepared. Afterward, they played a board game that Mason particularly enjoyed, because of its predictable rules and patterns. As the evening drew to a close, Aiden noticed Mason struggling to keep his eyes open, exhausted from the social interaction and new environment. "We should probably head home," Willow said, noticing too. "Mason needs his routine, especially for bedtime." Aiden nodded in understanding. "Of course. Thank you both for coming. It meant a lot to us." At the door, Willow surprised him by leaning in and kissing his cheek. "Thank you for a wonderful evening," she said softly. The kiss was brief and innocent, but Aiden felt its warmth long after they had gone. Putting Lily to bed that night, he found himself distracted, replaying the moment in his mind. "Daddy, Lily said as he tucked her in. "Do you like Miss Willow?" Aiden blinked, caught off guard by his daughter's directness. "Of course I do. She's a very nice person." Lily rolled her eyes with the exasperation only a 5-year-old could muster. "No, Daddy, do you like her? Like in my princess books?" Aiden chuckled but felt a flush creep up his neck. "It's complicated, Sweet Pia. Grown-up relationships are different from fairy tales." "But you smile different when she's here," Lily persisted. "And she looks at you like Ariel looks at Prince Eric." "Does she now?" Aiden said, amused by his daughter's observations. "Well, miss. Willow and I are friends and we work together. That's all for now." Lily seemed unconvinced but allowed the subject to drop as tiredness overtook her. After she fell asleep, Aiden sat in their small living room thinking about Willow Davidson. The woman who had everything: wealth, success, intelligence, and yet seemed genuinely interested in a struggling single father with little to offer except his integrity and hard work. Was it possible she felt something beyond friendship? And if she did, what then? Their worlds were so different. He lived paycheck to paycheck in a modest apartment, while she occupied a multi-million-dollar penthouse and ran a technology empire. Yet when they were together, those differences seemed to fade into the background. What remained was a connection he hadn't felt in years, maybe ever. A shared understanding of the challenges of single parenthood, a mutual respect, and increasingly, an attraction he found harder to ignore. Aiden sighed, running a hand through his hair. Even if Willow did share his feelings, pursuing a relationship would complicate everything. The professional boundaries would blur, the children would be affected, and if it didn't work out, he pushed the thoughts aside. For now, he would focus on the positives: a good job, Lily's happiness, and the friendship that had unexpectedly enriched their lives. The rest, whatever it might be, would have to wait. Across town in her penthouse, Willow Davidson was having similar thoughts as she completed Mason's bedtime routine. Her son had been unusually talkative, sharing details about Lily's room and the dinosaur book they'd read together. "I like Lily's house," Mason said as Willow tucked Rex beside him. "It's small but not too loud." "I liked it too," Willow said, smoothing his hair. "Did you have a good time?" Mason nodded. "Aiden makes food like you do, with everything separate, and he doesn't talk too much." Willow smiled at this particular compliment. Mason often found adults exhausting with their constant questions and chatter. The fact that he felt comfortable with Aiden was significant. "I'm glad you had fun," Willow said. "Sleep well, sweetheart." After Mason was asleep, Willow poured herself a glass of wine and stepped onto her terrace, looking out at the city lights. The evening at Aiden's apartment had affected her more than she'd expected. The small, warm space had felt more like a home than her expansive penthouse ever had, despite all its expensive furnishings and spectacular views. And then there was that moment in the kitchen when something had passed between them: an awareness, a possibility. Willow had acted on impulse when she kissed his cheek goodbye, and the surprised look in his eyes had stayed with her. Willow Davidson, who made million-dollar decisions without blinking, found herself uncertain about what to do next. Dating as a single mother was complicated enough. Dating as a wealthy CEO with a special needs child seemed nearly impossible. Most men she met were either intimidated by her success or saw her only in terms of it. And those who got past that hurdle usually couldn't handle Mason's needs and behaviors. Aiden was different. He saw her not just the successful businesswoman or the struggling mother, but the whole person. And he connected with Mason in a way few adults ever had, with patience and understanding rather than awkwardness or pity. But pursuing a relationship with him would be complex, to say the least. He worked for her company. Their children had formed a friendship. The stakes were high for everyone involved. Still, as she watched the city below, Willow couldn't deny the growing certainty that Aiden Turner was someone special, someone worth taking a chance on, despite the complications and risks. The question was whether he felt the same, and if so, how they would navigate the challenges ahead. the opportunity to find out came sooner than expected. The following week, Willow was scheduled to attend a charity gala, one of those black tie events that filled her calendar but rarely provided any actual enjoyment. Usually, she would go alone or with a business associate, make the expected appearances, and leave as soon as decently possible. This time, however, she found herself calling Aiden with an unexpected proposal. "I know this is last minute," she said after explaining about the gala, "but I was wondering if you might accompany me. Purely as friends," she added quickly, "but it would be nice to have company I actually enjoy." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I'm flattered," Aiden said finally, "but I'm not sure I have the right clothes for something like that, and there's Lily to consider." "Emily could arrange for appropriate attire," Willow said. "And Mason's regular sitter could watch both children at my place. They get along so well, I think they'd enjoy it." Another pause, longer this time. "As friends?" Aiden asked, and Willow couldn't quite interpret his tone. "Yes, of course," she repeated, though she wasn't entirely sure that was what she wanted. "Just a favor between friends." "Then I'd be happy to join you," Aiden said, "though I should warn you my knowledge of fine wine is limited to red and white." Willow laughed, relieved by his acceptance and the humor that eased any awkwardness. "Don't worry, I'll steer you away from any wine snobs." After arranging the details, Willow hung up feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. It wasn't a date, she'd been clear about that, but it felt like a step toward something beyond their current friendship. The night of the gala, Willow found herself taking extra care with her appearance, choosing a midnight blue gown that was elegant without being ostentatious. As her driver took her to Aiden's apartment to pick him up, she felt an unfamiliar fluttering in her stomach, something like anticipation mixed with anxiety. Aiden was waiting outside his building, and Willow's breath caught when she saw him. The tuxedo Emily had arranged fit him perfectly, highlighting his broad shoulders and tall frame. He looked handsome but slightly uncomfortable, tugging at his collar as the car pulled up. "You look beautiful," he said simply, as he joined her in the back of the car. "Thank you," Willow replied, suddenly feeling shy. "You clean up pretty well yourself." Aiden grinned, some of his tension easing. "Your assistant has good taste. I've never worn anything this expensive in my life." "Well, it suits you," Willow said. "How's Lily doing with the sleepover arrangement?" "Thrilled," Aiden said. "She packed about 20 books to show Mason, plus her entire rock collection. I hope that's okay." "It's perfect," Willow assured him. "Mason's been talking about it all day. He even made a schedule for their activities." As they drove to the venue, they fell into easy conversation, the initial awkwardness fading. Willow explained the purpose of the gala, raising funds for a technology education program in underserved schools, and found Aiden genuinely interested in the details. "That's something I worry about for Lily," he admitted. "Schools in our district are overcrowded and underfunded. Technology education is practically non-existent." "That's exactly the problem we're trying to address," Willow said. "Every child deserves access to quality education, regardless of their zip code." The gala was held at the city's most prestigious hotel, with red carpet arrivals and photographers documenting the entrance of wealthy donors and local celebrities. As they stepped out of the car, Willow instinctively took Aiden's arm, both for support in her heels and as a public statement of his status as her guest. She felt him tense slightly as cameras flashed, but he kept his composure, escorting her with a natural dignity that belied his unfamiliarity with such events. Inside, the ballroom was a showcase of wealth and influence, crystal chandeliers, floral arrangements worth more than Aiden's monthly rent, and guests in designer formal wear networking over champagne. "Willow, darling," a woman's voice called, and they turned to see Catherine Mercer, one of Willow's fellow CEOs, approaching with her husband. "So glad you could make it. And who is this handsome escort?" "Catherine, Tom, this is Aiden Turner," Willow said smoothly. "Aiden, Catherine is the CEO of Mercer Media Group." A pleasure, Aiden said, shaking their hands with confidence that surprised Willow given his admission of discomfort with such events. "And what do you do, Mr. Turner?" Catherine asked, her tone suggesting she was already categorizing him as either useful to her network or not. "Aiden is overseeing the renovation of our new research division," Willow answered before Aiden could respond. "He's revolutionized our approach to project management." Catherine's eyebrows rose slightly. "How fascinating. Well, we must catch up properly, Willow. Call my office next week." As they moved away, Aiden leaned closer to Willow. "Thanks for the promotion," he murmured. "I'm pretty sure construction consultant wouldn't have impressed her." Willow smiled. "I didn't exaggerate. You have revolutionized our approach. Besides, Catherine judges everyone by their title first and their character second, if at all." The evening continued in a similar vein, with Willow introducing Aiden to various business associates and philanthropists. To her surprise and admiration, he handled each interaction with grace and authentic engagement, showing genuine interest in the education initiative and asking thoughtful questions. During dinner, they were seated at a table with several of Willow's peers in the tech industry. As the conversation turned to the challenges of balancing work and family, Aiden spoke up for the first time without being directly addressed. "I think the real issue is that our systems aren't designed with parents in mind," he said. "Especially single parents or those with children who have special needs. Flexible work arrangements aren't just nice perks, they're essential for many families to function." The table fell silent for a moment, unused to such direct commentary on social issues rather than the usual safe topics of market trends and stock prices. "That's a very good point," said Richard Zhao, CEO of a competing tech firm. "At Zhao Technologies, we've been experimenting with more flexible schedules, but honestly, we haven't considered the specific challenges for single parents." Willow felt a surge of pride as the conversation shifted to a more meaningful discussion of workplace policies and inclusion. Aiden spoke from experience, but without self-pity, offering insights that these powerful executives rarely heard directly. Later, as they danced to the music of the live orchestra, Willow found herself closer to Aiden than strictly necessary. His hand was warm and steady against her back, and he moved with surprising grace for someone who claimed to have 2 left feet. "Thank you for coming tonight," she said quietly. "I'm usually counting the minutes until I can leave these events, but I'm actually enjoying myself." "So am I," Aiden admitted. "Though I'm pretty sure your friend Catherine was trying to figure out if I was a sophisticated gold digger or just a charity case." Willow laughed. "Catherine tries to categorize everyone she meets. She can't quite handle people who don't fit into her predetermined boxes." "And what box does she put you in?" Aiden asked, his eyes searching hers. Willow considered this. "Probably brilliant but odd. I've never quite played by the expected rules." "That's what I admire about you," Aiden said, his voice lower now. "You've created your own path." The music slowed, and they moved closer still, the pretense of just friends becoming harder to maintain. Willow could feel the solid strength of him, smell the clean scent of his aftershave, and for a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to truly be with him not as a business associate or friend, but as something more. "Willow," Aiden began, his voice serious, but they were interrupted by the event coordinator announcing the start of the charity auction. The moment broken, they returned to their table, a new awareness humming between them. Throughout the auction, Willow was conscious of Aiden beside her, his shoulder occasionally brushing hers, his profile in the dimmed lights, the way he smiled at something the auctioneer said. When it was time to leave, they walked to the car in comfortable silence, both processing the evening and what had transpired or almost transpired on the dance floor in the privacy of the car. Aiden turned to her. "I had a really good time tonight. Thank you for inviting me." "Thank you for coming," Willow replied. "You were a hit." Richard Zhao asked for your contact information. I think he wants to pick your brain about those workplace flexibility initiatives. Aiden looked surprised. Really? That's unexpected. You made an impression, Willow said. You have a way of cutting through the usual corporate speak to what actually matters. There was a pause, the air between them charged with unspoken words. Finally, Aiden took a deep breath. Willow, I need to ask something, and I want an honest answer. Tonight, was it really just as friends? Because it felt like more, at least to me. Willow's heart raced. This was the moment of truth, the chance to acknowledge what had been building between them or retreat to the safety of their current relationship. It felt like more to me too, she admitted quietly. But I wasn't sure if you felt the same way, or if you'd even want to consider something more complicated than friendship, given our situations. Aiden's smile was slow and genuine. I think our situations are already pretty complicated, but some complications are worth it for the right person. He reached across the space between them and took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. I felt something for you since that first dinner at your place, but I didn't want to risk what we had, the work relationship, the kids' friendship, all of it. I know, Willow said. I've been afraid of the same things. Plus, there's the whole she's his boss awkwardness. Technically, I'm a consultant, not an employee, Aiden pointed out. But yes, that's a consideration. Along with our very different lifestyles, the potential impact on Mason and Lily. Are we talking ourselves out of this before we even try? Willow asked, half joking but with a note of genuine concern. Aiden squeezed her hand. I hope not, because despite all the complications, all I can think about right now is how much I want to kiss you. Willow's breath caught. I think that could be arranged, she said softly. He leaned across the space between them, cupping her face gently in his hand. The kiss was tentative at first, a question rather than a demand. But when Willow responded, moving closer and sliding her hand to his shoulder, it deepened into something more certain, a promise. A beginning. When they finally broke apart, Willow felt lightheaded in a way that had nothing to do with the champagne at the gala. Aiden's eyes were dark in the dimness of the car, his expression a mixture of desire and tenderness that made her heart ache. So, he said, his voice slightly rough, what happens now? Now, Willow replied, we take things one step at a time. Starting with picking up our children and seeing if they've managed not to turn my penthouse upside down. Aiden laughed, the tension broken but the connection between them stronger than ever. One step at a time sounds perfect. As the car carried them through the nighttime city toward her home and their waiting children, Willow felt a sense of rightness settle over her. Whatever challenges lay ahead, and there would be many facing them with Aiden by her side, felt not just possible, but right. The transition from friendship to romance was both easier and more complicated than either of them had anticipated. On one hand, they already knew and respected each other, had established trust, and shared the bond of single parenthood. On the other, they now had to navigate the complexities of their disparate lives, professional connections, and most importantly, the impact on their children. They agreed to take things slowly, keeping their relationship private while they figured out how to blend their worlds in a way that worked for everyone. Their first official date was deliberately low-key, a picnic in a quiet corner of the botanical gardens while the children participated in an educational program nearby. This feels strange, Willow admitted as they spread a blanket under a flowering cherry tree. Dating as a parent is so different. I keep checking my phone to make sure Mason's okay. I know exactly what you mean, Aiden said, unpacking the lunch he'd prepared. Half my brain is always on Lily alert, even when I know she's fine. They laughed at their shared neurosis, and the tension eased. As they ate and talked, their conversation ranging from childhood memories to favorite books to future dreams, Willow marveled at how comfortable she felt with him. There was none of the artifice or performance that had characterized her few previous dating experiences since Mason's birth. Can I ask you something personal? Aiden said as they lingered over coffee from a thermos. Of course. With all your success, the company, the wealth, everything you've built, do you ever feel like something's missing? Willow considered the question seriously. Yes and no. I'm proud of what I've accomplished professionally, and being Mason's mother is the most important thing in my life. But there have been lonely moments. Times when I wished for someone who understood both parts of my life, the CEO and the mom who spends hours researching sensory-friendly clothing options. She paused, then asked, "What about you? Do you regret the path that led you to single fatherhood?" Aiden shook his head. Not for a second. Lily is the best thing that ever happened to me, but I do regret not being able to give her everything she deserves, the financial security, the opportunities that come with it. She has what matters most, Willow said softly. A father who loves her unconditionally and teaches her what's really important in life. Aiden's smile was tinged with emotion. Thank you for that. Sometimes I need the reminder. When they collected the children, both Mason and Lily were full of excitement about the insects they'd observed in the garden program. As they walked together toward the exit, Lily slipped her hand into Mason's, an instinctive gesture of friendship that made both parents exchange a glance of surprised pleasure. "Daddy, can Mason come to my school's family day next week?" Lily asked suddenly. "I told my teacher I have a friend who knows everything about dinosaurs, and she said I could invite him." Aiden looked to Willow, unsure how to respond. Mason's school was a private institution specifically designed for children with autism and other learning differences. Lily's public school environment might be overwhelming for him. To his surprise, it was Mason who spoke up. "What's family day?" he asked, his voice serious but interested. Lily launched into an explanation of the event, a day when families came to school for special activities and presentations. As she described the schedule, Willow noticed that Mason was actually listening, his usual aversion to lengthy conversations notably absent. "There would be a lot of noise and people," Willow cautioned gently when Lily finished. "That might be difficult for you, Mason." Mason considered this, his expression thoughtful. "Could I wear my headphones, and could Rex come too?" "I'm sure that would be fine," Aiden said, looking to Willow again. "We could have a signal if it gets too much, and one of us could take Mason to a quiet spot or home if needed." "We." Willow repeated, raising an eyebrow. Aiden flushed slightly. "I meant if you wanted me to come along for support, or you and Mason could go without me, of course." "No," Willow said, a smile spreading across her face. "I like we. If Mason wants to try, and you're both comfortable with me coming to family day, I think it could be good for him to expand his experiences in a supportive environment." The decision was made, and as they parted ways that evening, Aiden and Lily to their apartment, Willow and Mason to their penthouse, Aiden found himself marveling at how naturally they'd begun to function as a unit, considering each other in decisions that affected their children. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, he called Willow. They'd fallen into the habit of evening phone conversations, a quiet moment to connect at the end of busy days. "I was thinking about today," he said, after they'd exchanged updates on the children's bedtimes. "About how easily we're falling into a rhythm as, whatever we are." "Whatever we are," Willow repeated, amusement in her voice. "Very specific." "Well, I'm not sure what to call it yet," Aiden admitted. "Dating seems too casual, but partners seems premature." "How about we're two people who care deeply about each other and are figuring out if we can build something meaningful together?" Willow suggested. "That's a lot of words, but yes, that's exactly it," Aiden agreed. "And speaking of building something together, I've been thinking about Family Day." "What about it?" "It's a big step, isn't it? Appearing together at a school function. The children will see it as us being a unit, and so will other parents and teachers." Willow was quiet for a moment. "Does that worry you?" "Not worry exactly," Aiden said carefully. "But I want to be sure we're thinking through the implications, for the kids especially." "I've been thinking about that too," Willow admitted. "Mason doesn't adjust easily to change, and he's already attached to both you and Lily. If things between us didn't work out, it would be very difficult for him." The unspoken question hung between them. Were they ready to risk their children's emotional well-being on their fledgling relationship? Maybe we should talk to them, Aiden suggested. Not about us dating, necessarily, but about how they feel about spending time together as a group. Get a sense of what they're thinking. That's a good idea, Willow agreed. Mason is actually more forthcoming about his feelings than most people realize. He just expresses them differently. The conversation shifted to other topics, the renovation project's progress. A book Willow had recently read, Lily's latest art project, but the question of their future lingered in both their minds. Family Day arrived with perfect spring weather and a mixture of excitement and anxiety for all four of them. Willow had helped Mason prepare with social stories about what to expect, and Aiden had talked with Lily about being sensitive to Mason's needs in the busy environment. They met at the school, arriving early to help Mason acclimate to the space before it filled with other families. Lily proudly showed them her classroom, introducing Mason to her teacher and showing him where she sat. "This is my friend Mason," she told her teacher. "He knows all about dinosaurs and has a special dinosaur named Rex." The teacher, Miss Parker, smiled warmly at Mason. "Welcome, Mason. Lily has told us all about you. Would you like to see our class pet? It's a bearded dragon." Mason, who had been standing slightly behind Willow, looked interested despite his nervousness. "Is it related to Komodo dragons?" he asked. "They're both reptiles, but not closely related," Miss Parker replied, treating his question with the seriousness it deserved. "Would you like to learn more about him?" As Mason cautiously approached the terrarium with Lily, Miss Parker turned to Aiden and Willow. "It's wonderful to meet both of you. Lily talks about Mason constantly, and it's nice to put faces to names." Willow realized that the teacher assumed they were a family unit, Mason's parents as well as Lily's. Before she could clarify, Aiden spoke. "Thank you for including Mason today. He's a bit sensitive to noise and crowds, but he really wanted to be here for Lily." Miss Parker nodded in understanding. "We have several children in our class with sensory sensitivities. There's a quiet room down the hall if he needs a break, and I've planned some of our activities to be more inclusive." As the morning progressed and other families arrived, Willow watched anxiously for signs of Mason becoming overwhelmed. But to her surprise and delight, he was managing well. The headphones helped block the worst of the noise, and Lily stayed close, acting as an unofficial guide and interpreter. During one activity, where families worked together to build towers from recycled materials, Willow found herself working side by side with Aiden, their hands occasionally brushing as they passed materials back and forth. The simple domesticity of it, collaborating with the children on a shared project, filled her with an unexpected longing for more moments like this. Aiden seemed to sense her thoughts, catching her eye with a warm smile that spoke volumes. They were building more than just a tower of cardboard tubes and bottle caps. They were building a foundation for something that felt increasingly right and natural. The defining moment came during lunch, when all the families gathered in the cafeteria. The noise level rose dramatically, and Willow noticed Mason beginning to rock slightly, a sign he was reaching his tolerance limits. Before she could suggest a break, Lily noticed too. Without prompting, she leaned over to Mason and said something Willow couldn't hear. Mason nodded, and the two children stood up. "We're going to the quiet room for a little while," Lily announced to the adults. "Mason needs a break from the noise, and I'm going to show him my book about sharks that's in my cubby." Aiden looked at Willow, both of them startled by Lily's mature response to Mason's needs. "Is that okay?" he asked Mason directly. Mason nodded. "Lily knows where it is, and will come right back when my ears feel better." They watched as the children walked away, Lily carefully not holding Mason's hand but staying close beside him, chatting quietly about the shark book. "Did you tell her to do that?" Willow asked, emotion making her voice slightly unsteady. Aiden shook his head. "No, she figured it out on her own." "They're good for each other," Willow said softly. "Yes, they are," Aiden agreed, his hand finding hers under the table. just like their parents. That evening, after a successful if tiring day, they took the children for ice cream to celebrate Mason's first full school event. As the children debated the relative merits of different flavors, Aiden pulled Willow slightly aside. "I've been thinking all day about what you said on the phone about us building something meaningful together," he said. "Today felt like a glimpse of what that could be." Willow nodded, her throat tight with emotion. "It did for me too. I know we agreed to take things slowly, and I still think that's right," Aiden continued, "but I also want you to know that I'm all in, Willow. Whatever challenges come with blending our lives, I think what we're building is worth it." Willow looked at this man, this kind, strong, thoughtful man who had entered her life through a chance encounter, and felt a certainty she'd rarely experienced in her personal relationships. "I'm all in too," she said simply, and the smile that lit up Aiden's face made her heart skip. Their moment was interrupted by Lily calling them to settle a debate about whether mint chocolate chip was better than cookie dough, but the understanding between them had deepened. They were no longer just exploring possibilities. They were committed to creating a future together, however complex that might be. Over the next several months, that commitment was tested in various ways, both large and small. There were practical challenges: the distance between their homes, their different financial realities, the logistics of coordinating schedules for two busy working parents and two children with different needs. There were emotional hurdles, too. Mason had his first major meltdown in front of Aiden, testing Aiden's understanding and patience. Lily went through a phase of asking difficult questions about why her mother had left and whether Willow would leave too. Willow struggled with relinquishing some of her independence and decision-making autonomy, while Aiden had to confront his pride when Willow's wealth inevitably became a factor in their shared experiences. But through each challenge, they grew stronger as a couple and as a family unit. They developed routines that worked for everyone's Sunday brunches at Willow's penthouse, movie nights at Aiden's apartment, and family outings carefully planned to accommodate Mason's sensitivities while still being fun for Lily. 6 months after the gala, as summer faded into fall, Aiden faced a professional crossroads. The renovation project at Davidson Tech was complete, and his consulting contract was coming to an end. Several construction firms had approached him with job offers, impressed by the work he'd done. But all would require more travel than was ideal for his situation with Lily. Willow, aware of his dilemma but careful not to overstep, suggested a solution during one of their evening walks: a new position at Davidson Tech, overseeing all facilities management and future construction projects. "The company is growing," she explained as they strolled along the riverfront, the children walking ahead of them collecting interesting stones. "We'll be expanding to at least 3 new locations in the next 5 years. It would mean a permanent position, full benefits, and minimal travel." Aiden was quiet for a moment. "And if things between us changed, wouldn't that make it awkward?" Willow stopped walking, turning to face him directly. "First, I don't see that happening, but if it did, the position would still be yours based on merit. I wouldn't let personal matters affect professional decisions." Aiden searched her face, then nodded slowly. "I believe that. But I'd need one condition: that I report to the operations director, not directly to you. I need to know I've earned my place, not just been given it." "That's already how the position is structured," Willow assured him. "You'd be part of Martin's team, not reporting directly to me. I may own the company, Aiden, but I don't micromanage every department." Aiden smiled, taking her hand as they resumed walking. "In that case, I'd be honored to accept the position. Thank you for thinking of it." With his professional future secured, Aiden felt more confident about the next step in their personal relationship. He'd been saving for months from his consultant salary, living as frugally as possible to put aside enough money for what he planned. On a crisp October evening, while Mason and Lily were at a supervised play date with the children of Willow's friend from her autism parent support group, Aiden took Willow back to the mall where they'd first met. Why are we here?" Willow asked, puzzled as they walked through the now familiar space. "I thought we should come full circle," Aiden explained, leading her toward the fountain. "This is where our story began." The fountain was quiet today, the water flowing gently rather than the noisy cascade that had triggered Mason's meltdown months ago. Aiden guided Willow to the exact spot where they'd first spoken. 7 months ago, I was rushing through this mall, late for a job interview, worried about bills and how I would provide for Lily, Aiden said, taking both her hands in his. And then I heard a child in distress, and I saw a mother trying her best to help him. I didn't think twice about stopping. It was just the right thing to do. Willow's eyes were soft with memory. You were the only person who didn't just stare or walk by. You knew exactly what Mason needed when I felt completely helpless. What I didn't know, Aiden continued, was that stopping to help you two would change my life in ways I could never have imagined. I didn't know I was meeting the woman who would redefine what love means to me. Willow's breath caught as Aiden reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "Aiden, I'm not a wealthy man," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I can't offer you material things you don't already have. But I can promise you this. I will love you and Mason with everything I am, every day, for as long as you'll have me." He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond ring modest by the standards of Willow's world, but representing months of careful saving and thoughtful selection. "Willow Davidson, will you marry me? Will you build a family with Lily and me, combining our lives and our loves into something even stronger and more beautiful than what we have now?" Tears filled Willow's eyes, but her smile was radiant. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes to all of it." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, a small commotion caught their attention. From behind a nearby pillar, Mason and Lily emerged, along with Emily, who had been secretly minding them nearby. "Did she say yes?" Lily called, unable to contain her excitement. Aiden laughed, lifting Willow's hand to show the ring now gracing her finger. "She said yes." The children rushed forward, Lily hugging them both while Mason approached more cautiously, but with a rare, genuine smile. "We helped pick the ring," Lily announced proudly. "But it was supposed to be a secret until now." "You knew about this?" Willow asked Mason, crouching down to his level. Mason nodded seriously. "Aiden asked me if it was okay if he married you and became part of our family. I said yes because he understands about quiet spaces and he makes you smile the real smile." Willow's heart melted at her son's perceptiveness. "The real smile? The one that makes your eyes crinkle, not the one you use for business people," Mason explained matter-of-factly. Aiden laughed, kneeling beside Willow to include both children in their circle. "That's right, buddy. And you and Lily will be part of the same family, too. How do you feel about that?" "Like Rex will finally have his whole family together," Mason said, surprising them all with the depth of his understanding. As they stood together by the fountain where their journey had begun, no longer strangers, but a family being formed through love and choice, Willow felt a completeness she'd never expected to find. Later that evening, after celebrating with a special dinner and putting the excited children to bed, Aiden and Willow stood on her terrace, looking out at the city lights. "I've been thinking about our living situation," Willow said, leaning against Aiden's solid warmth. "After we're married." "I assumed we'd live here," Aiden replied. "It makes more sense, more space, and Mason is settled in his routine here." Willow turned to face him. "Actually, I was thinking we might look for a new place altogether, something that's ours, not mine that you're moving into. A fresh start." Aiden looked surprised. "But this place is perfect, and the expense of something comparable doesn't matter," Willow interrupted gently. "What matters is that we build our marriage on equal footing. I know our financial situations are different, but I don't want you to ever feel like you're living in my space." Aiden studied her face, then nodded slowly. "I appreciate that more than you know, but wherever we live, what makes it home will be the four of us together. That's what matters most." "Speaking of the four of us," Willow said, a smile playing at her lips. "Would you be open to it becoming 5 someday? Or is that crazy given our ages and situations?" Aiden's eyes widened. "You want another child?" "I've been thinking about it," Willow admitted. "Seeing Mason and Lily together, how they complement each other. I wonder if another sibling might be wonderful for them both. And I'd love to experience raising a child with a partner from the beginning rather than doing it alone." Aiden pulled her close, his expression thoughtful. "It wouldn't be easy with our busy careers and the children we already have." "The best things rarely are easy," Willow pointed out. "True," Aiden agreed, a slow smile spreading across his face. "And Lily has been asking for a baby brother or sister since she was 3. I think she'd be thrilled." "So that's a maybe?" Willow asked, hope in her voice. Aiden kissed her softly. "That's a definite possibility we should keep discussing. But for now, let's focus on becoming husband and wife and officially blending our families." In the months that followed, they did exactly that. Wedding plans came together, not the extravagant society event that might have been expected for someone of Willow's status, but an intimate ceremony with only their closest friends and family present. They found a new home, a spacious house with a garden, located halfway between Willow's office and Lily's school, with plenty of room for both children to have their own spaces designed to their preferences. When the wedding day arrived, it was Mason who carried the rings, carefully following the exact path they had practiced multiple times. Lily scattered flower petals with artistic flair, beaming as she watched her father wait for his bride. And as Willow walked toward Aiden, radiant in a simple ivory gown, she reflected on the extraordinary journey that had led them here. From a chance encounter during a moment of crisis to this carefully constructed love that had transformed all their lives. "Ready?" Aiden whispered as she reached him, taking her hands in his. "More than ready," Willow replied, her heart full to bursting with love for this man and the family they had created together. As they exchanged their vows, with Mason and Lily standing proudly beside them, they promised not just to love each other, but to nurture the unique family they had built, a family founded on understanding, patience, and the remarkable power of being truly seen and accepted for exactly who you are. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared, and as Aiden kissed his bride, cheers erupted from their guests. Mason covered his ears at the sudden noise, but he was smiling a genuine, joyful smile that reflected the happiness surrounding him. Lily bounced on her toes with excitement, then hugged her new brother with uncharacteristic gentleness, mindful of his sensitivities even in her exuberance. And Rex the dinosaur sat in a place of honor on a small cushion, watching over the family he had helped bring together on that fateful day at the mall fountain. 2 years later, the family welcomed its newest member, a baby girl named Evelyn Hope Turner Davidson, born on a spring morning as cherry blossoms drifted past the hospital windows. "She's perfect," Aiden whispered, cradling his newborn daughter while Willow watched with tired but radiant eyes. "She is," Willow agreed, "and she has the best big brother and sister waiting to meet her." Later that day, when Mason and Lily were brought to the hospital, their reactions were everything their parents had hoped for. Lily was enchanted, immediately launching into plans for all she would teach her baby sister. Mason was more reserved but equally fascinated, carefully studying the tiny features of the newest family member. "She's very small," he observed. "Smaller than Rex. She'll grow," Aiden assured him. "And she's going to need her big brother to help her learn about the world." Mason considered this responsibility seriously. "I can teach her about dinosaurs," he decided, "and about how to find quiet places when things get too loud." "That sounds perfect," Willow said, her heart overflowing with love for her extraordinary family, a family that had formed not through conventional paths, but through a single moment of kindness that had changed everything. As evening fell and the children were taken home by Emily, now a cherished friend as well as employee, Aiden sat beside Willow's hospital bed, their new daughter sleeping peacefully in a bassinet nearby. Did you ever imagine, that day at the mall, that we'd end up here?" Willow asked, her fingers intertwined with his. Aiden shook his head, smiling. "Not in my wildest dreams. I was just trying to help a child in distress and make it to a job interview. And I was just a desperate mother trying to handle my son's meltdown," Willow added. "I had no idea I was meeting the love of my life." "Life's funny that way," Aiden said, leaning forward to kiss her gently. "The most important moments often don't announce themselves. They just happen, and it's only later you realize everything changed in that instant." "I'm so glad you stopped that day," Willow murmured, her eyes heavy with exhaustion but bright with happiness. "So am I," Aiden replied, watching as his wife drifted toward sleep, their newborn daughter breathing softly nearby. "So am I." And in that quiet hospital room, surrounded by the gentle rhythm of his wife's and daughter's breathing, Aiden Turner reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them here, from struggling single father to beloved husband, from chance encounter to enduring love, from two separate families to one united whole. It hadn't been easy, and there would be challenges ahead. But as he looked at the beautiful life they had built together, Aiden knew with absolute certainty that every step of their journey, beginning with that moment of kindness at a mall fountain, had been worth it. For in that moment, without realizing it, they had found not just each other, but the missing pieces that made their lives complete.